Good afternoon. I don't ask me how I ended up on this. I just did. I ended up on this video with Kennedy and Nixon, and the year is 1960. I think this farm policy has failed, and imposing upon the farmers controls on acreage. This is their first debate. Gina, do you like politics? No, I do not like politics. I just want to make that clear right now. But I was looking through certain videos, and there came one after the other, and I clicked on this one as a suggested video, and it's 20 minutes long. I think we can listen to it because I don't know what was going on back in the year 1960. I was not even born. Hello, everyone. Welcome. I do know that 1960s. Let's see what 1960 was. Let's look over here. 1960 was a leap year starting on Friday of the Gregorian calendar, the 1960th year of the Common Era and Anno Domini designations, the 960th year of the second millennium, the 60th year of the 20th century, and the first year of the 1960s decade. So I ran into this thing right here, and it's pretty interesting. If I can see it, we're going to see it.
Good evening. The television and radio stations of the United States and their affiliated stations are proud to provide facilities for a discussion of it.
It's not playing the sound. You cannot hear the sound, you all? Okay. Wonder why you can't hear the sound. Do you think that they have done something to the sound? Oh, I know what's happening. I know exactly what happened. They don't want the sound to be heard. Well, I can... It's an audio input, audio output. It's audio output capture. You've got to be kidding. They won't let you hear it? Oh my gosh. The audio output capture. Maybe it's the video capture? This is really weird. This is weird. Let's see if we can hear it. I'm not supposed to play it, obviously. Let me see this.
Be restricted to internal or domestic American matters. And now for the first opening statement by Senator John F. Kennedy.
Smith, Nixon. In the election of 1860, Abraham Lincoln said the question was whether this nation could exist.
It's not going to... It will not let me play this so you can hear it. That's messed up. That is messed up, you all. All the times before I could do it. It's audio input capture. I should be able to do the audio output capture, and it should work. You can hear it? Can you hear me? Okay. Could you hear that playing? Because I didn't know. Could you hear that playing at all on your all's end? The video. Hello, Christine, honey. Okay, I'm going to start over. We're going to try it again. Okay, let's try it. See if I can put that over here to see if you can hear it.
Good evening. The television and radio stations of the United States and their affiliated stations are proud to provide facilities for a discussion of issues in the current political campaign by the two major candidates for the presidency. The candidates need no introduction. The Republican candidate, Vice President Richard M. Nixon, and the Democratic candidate, Senator John F. Kennedy. According to rules set by the candidates themselves, each man shall make an opening statement of approximately 8 minutes duration and a closing statement of approximately 3 minutes duration. In between, the candidates will answer or comment upon answers to questions put by a panel of correspondents. In this, the first discussion in a series of 4 joint appearances, the subject matter has been agreed will be restricted to internal or domestic American matters. And now for the first opening statement by Senator John F. Kennedy.
Smith, Nixon. In the election of 1860, Abraham Lincoln said the question was whether this nation could exist half slave or half free. In the election of 1960, and with the world around us, the question is whether the world will exist half slave or half free, whether it will move in the direction of freedom, in the direction of the road that we are taking, or whether it will move in the direction of slavery. I think it will depend in great measure upon what we do here in the United States, that we build, on the kind of strength that we maintain. We discussed tonight domestic issues, but I would not want that to be any implication to be given that this does not involve directly our struggle with Mr. Khrushchev for survival. Mr. Khrushchev is in New York, and he maintains the communist offensive throughout the world because of the productive power of the Soviet Union itself. The Chinese communists have always had a large population, but they are important and dangerous now because they are mounting a major effort within their own country. The kind of country we have here, the kind of society we have, the kind of strength we build in the United States will be the defense of freedom. If we do well here, if we meet our obligations, if we're moving ahead, then I think freedom will be secure around the world. If we fail, then freedom fails. Therefore, I think the question before the American people is, are we doing as much as we can do? Are we as strong as we should be? Are we as strong as we must be if we're going to maintain our independence? And if we're going to maintain and hold out the hand of friendship to those who look to us for assistance, to those who look to us for survival? I should make it very clear that I do not think we're doing enough, that I am not satisfied as an American with the progress that we're making. This is a great country, but I think it could be a greater country. And this is a powerful country, but I think it could be a more powerful country. I'm not satisfied to have 50% of our steel mill capacity unused. I'm not satisfied when the United States had last year the lowest rate of economic growth of any major industrialized society in the world, because economic growth means strength and vitality. It means we're able to sustain our defenses. It means we're able to meet our commitments abroad. I'm not satisfied when we have over $9 billion worth of food, some of it rotting, even though there is a hungry world, and even though 4 million Americans wait every month for a food package from the government, which averages 5 cents a day per individual. I saw cases in West Virginia, here in the United States, where children took home part of their school lunch in order to feed their families, because I don't think we're meeting our obligations towards these Americans. I'm not satisfied when the Soviet Union is turning out twice as many scientists and engineers as we are. I'm not satisfied when many of our teachers are inadequately paid, or when our children go to school part-time shifts. I think we should have an educational system second to none. I'm not satisfied when I see men like Jimmy Hoffa in charge of the largest union in the United States, still free. I'm not satisfied when we are failing to develop the natural resources of the United States to the fullest. Here in the United States, which developed the Tennessee Valley, and which built the Grand Coulee and the other dams in the northwest United States. At the present rate of hydropower production, and that is the hallmark of an industrialized society, the Soviet Union by 1975 will be producing more power than we are. These are all the things, I think, in this country that can make our society strong or can mean that it stands still. I'm not satisfied until every American enjoys his full constitutional rights. If a Negro baby is born, and this is true also of Puerto Ricans and Mexicans in some of our cities, he has about 1/2 as much chance to get through high school as a white baby. He has 1/3 as much chance to get through college as a white student. He has about 1/3 as much chance to be a professional man, about 1/2 as much chance to own a house. He has about 4 times as much chance that he'll be out of work in his life as the white baby. I think we can do better. I don't want the talents of any American to go to waste. I know that there are those who say that we want to turn everything over to the government. I don't at all. I want the individuals to meet their responsibilities. And I want the states to meet their responsibilities. But I think there is also a national responsibility. The argument has been used against every piece of social legislation in the last 25 years. The people of the United States individually could not have developed the Tennessee Valley. Collectively, they could have. A cotton farmer in Georgia, or a peanut farmer, or a dairy farmer in Wisconsin or Minnesota, he cannot protect himself against the forces of supply and demand in the marketplace, but working together in effective governmental programs, he can do so. 17 million Americans who live over 65 on an average Social Security check of about $78 a month. They're not able to sustain themselves individually, but they can sustain themselves through the Social Security system. I don't believe in big government, but I believe in effective governmental action. And I think that's the only way that the United States is going to maintain its freedom. It's the only way that we're going to move ahead. I think we can do a better job. I think we're going to have to do a better job if we are going to meet the responsibilities which time and events have placed upon us. We cannot turn the job over to anyone else. If the United States fails, then the whole cause of freedom fails. And I think it depends in great measure on what we do here in this country. The reason Franklin Roosevelt was a good neighbor in Latin America was because he was a good neighbor in the United States. Because they felt that the American society was moving again. I want us to recapture that image. I want people in Latin America and Africa and Asia to start to look to America, to see how we're doing things, to wonder what the President of the United States is doing, and not to look at Khrushchev or look at the Chinese communists. That is the obligation upon our generation. In 1933, Franklin Roosevelt said in his inaugural that this generation of Americans has a rendezvous with destiny. I think our generation of Americans has the same rendezvous. The question now is, can freedom be maintained under the most severe attack it has ever known? I think it can be. And I think in the final analysis, it depends upon what we do here. I think it's time America started moving again.
And now the opening statement by Vice President Richard M. Nixon.
If you're just watching, I ended up on this video somehow, and I've never seen it in my life. I didn't know there was like debates like that. I didn't, and of course I'm not one for that. But still, something is strange. It is kind of strange. Yeah. So 1960s was a leap year. Let's look at the rest of it, you all. You want to look at the rest of it? Oh my gosh, it's 58 minutes long. We can't sit here for 58 minutes, you all. We can't. We cannot sit here for 58 minutes and listen to this. That's a long time. I did not realize it. We'll let Nixon stink. Sorry. Sorry. Apple Brooks, we do not. We'll let Nixon speak. Is that oh my God. Oh my goodness gracious. That is kind of embarrassing, you all. Oh, that is not very nice, Gina. I couldn't help it. You all, I could not help it. It came out of my mouth, and I wasn't even thinking of that word. That that's okay. Leslie, what he has to say. He got 8 minutes to talk. Yeah, 8 minutes to talk.
Smith, Senator Kennedy. The things that Senator Kennedy has said, many of us can agree with. There is no question but that we cannot discuss our internal affairs in the United States without recognizing that they have a tremendous bearing on our international position. There is no question but that this nation cannot stand still because we are in a deadly competition. A competition not only with the men in the Kremlin, but the men in Peking. We're ahead in this competition, as Senator Kennedy, I think, has implied. But when you're in a race, the only way to stay ahead is to move ahead. And I subscribe completely to the spirit that Senator Kennedy has expressed tonight, the spirit that the United States should move ahead. Where then do we disagree? I think we disagree on the implication of his remarks tonight and on the statements that he has made on many occasions during his campaign to the effect that the United States has been standing still. We heard tonight, for example, the statement made that our growth in national product last year was the lowest of any industrial nation in the world. Now, last year, of course, was 1958. That happened to be a recession year. But when we look at the growth of GNP this year, a year of recovery, we find that it's 6 9/10% and one of the highest in the world today. More about that later. Looking then to this problem of how the United States should move ahead and where the United States is moving, I think it is well that we take the advice of a very famous campaigner. Let's look at the record. Is the United States standing still? Is it true that this administration, as Senator Kennedy has charged, has been an administration of retreat, of defeat, of stagnation? Is it true that as far as this country is concerned, in the field of electric power, in all of the fields that he has mentioned, we have not been moving ahead? Well, we have a comparison that we can make. We have the record of the Truman administration of 7.5 years and the 7.5 years of the Eisenhower administration. When we compare these two records in the areas that Senator Kennedy has discussed tonight, I think we find that America has been moving ahead. Let's take schools. We have built more schools in these last 7.5 years than we built in the previous 7.5, for that matter, in the previous 20 years. Let's take hydroelectric power. We have developed more hydroelectric power in these 7.5 years than was developed in any previous administration in history. Let us take hospitals. We find that more have been built in this administration than in the previous administration. The same is true of highways. Let's put it in terms that all of us can understand. We often hear gross national product discussed, and in that respect, may I say that when we compare the growth in this administration with that of the previous administration, that then there was a total growth of 11% over 7 years. In this administration, there's been a total growth of 19% over 7 years. That shows that there's been more growth in this administration than in its predecessor. But let's not put it there. Let's put it in terms of the average family. What has happened to you? We find that your wages have gone up 5 times as much in the Eisenhower administration as they did in the Truman administration. What about the prices you pay? We find that the prices you pay went up 5 times as much in the Truman administration as they did in the Eisenhower administration. What's the net result of this? This means that the average family income went up 15% in the Eisenhower years as against 2% in the Truman years. Now, this is not standing still. But, good as this record is, may I emphasize, it isn't enough. A record is never something to stand on. It's something to build on. And in building on this record, I believe that we have the secret for progress. We know the way to progress. And I think, first of all, our own record proves that we know the way. Senator Kennedy has suggested that he believes he knows the way. I respect the sincerity with which he makes that suggestion. But on the other hand, when we look at the various programs that he offers, they do not seem to be new. They seem to be simply retreads of the programs of the Truman administration which preceded it. And I would suggest that during the course of the evening he might indicate those areas in which his programs are new, where they will mean more progress than we had then. What kind of programs are we for? We are for programs that will expand educational opportunities, that will give to all Americans their equal chance for education, for all of the things which are necessary and dear to the hearts of our people. We are for programs, in addition, which will see that our medical care for the aged is much better handled than it is at the present time. Here again, may I indicate that Senator Kennedy and I are not in disagreement as to the aim. We both want to help the old people. We want to see that they do have adequate medical care. The question is the means. I think that the means that I advocate will reach that goal better than the means that he advocates. I could give better examples, but for whatever it is, whether it's in the field of housing or health or medical care or schools or the development of electric power, we have programs which we believe will move America, move her forward and build on the wonderful record that we have made over these past 7.5 years. Now, when we look at these programs, might I suggest that in evaluating them, we often have a tendency to say that the test of a program is how much you're spending. I will concede that in all the areas to which I have referred, Senator Kennedy would have the federal government spend more than I would have it spend. I costed out the cost of the Democratic platform. It runs a minimum of $13.2 billion a year more than we are presently spending to a maximum of $18 billion a year more than we're presently spending. Now, the Republican platform will cost more, too. It will cost a minimum of $4 billion a year more, a maximum of $4.9 billion a year more than we're presently spending. Now, does this mean that his program is better than ours? Not at all. Because it isn't a question of how much the federal government spends. It isn't a question of which government does the most. It's a question of which administration does the right thing. And in our case, I do believe that our programs will stimulate the creative energies of 180 million free Americans. I believe the programs that Senator Kennedy advocates will have a tendency to stifle those creative energies. I believe, in other words, that his programs would lead to the stagnation of the motive power that we need in this country to get progress. The final point that I would like to make is this. Senator Kennedy has suggested in his speeches that we lack compassion for the poor, for the old, and for others that are unfortunate. Let us understand throughout this campaign that his motives and mine are sincere. I know what it means to be poor. I know what it means to see people who are unemployed. I know Senator Kennedy feels as deeply about these problems as I do. But our disagreement is not about the goals for America, but only about the means to reach those goals.
So that was interesting. It really was kind of interesting. If you think about it. Yeah. Gina, honey, what are you doing? All right, can you all hear me? I'm on here. Yeah, that's a presidential debate. I wanted to hear what they had to say about the budget, the farm program, and a recession. What do you think we're at? Let me see. The recession. Well, let me see the timestamp on this. Oh, man, Gina, honey, you can't do it. I clicked out the timestamp on this, you all. They spoke about a recession that was coming. If something happened with the farmers, we would be in a big-time recession. So, oh, okay, thank you. I think it was around this time. Let's see if we can get it, you all. Let me see if I can get it. Somebody was talking.
News. I'm Stuart Novin, CBS News.
Bob Fleming, ABC News.
The first question to Senator Kennedy from Mr. Fleming.
Senator, the Vice President in his campaign has said that you are naive and at times immature. He has raised the question of leadership. On this issue, why do you think people should vote for you rather than the Vice President?
Well, the Vice President and I came to the Congress together. 1946, we both served in the Labor Committee. I've been there now for 14 years.
1946. 1947. What happened in 1947? The Roswell incident. So him, they came into whatever in 1946. And then we had the Roswell. That's interesting.
Same period of time that he has. So that our experience in government is comparable. Secondly, I think the question is, what are the programs that we advocate? What is the party record that we lead? I come out of the Democratic Party, which in this century has produced Woodrow Wilson and Franklin Roosevelt and Harry Truman, and which supported and sustained these programs which I've discussed tonight. Mr. Nixon comes out of the Republican Party. He was nominated by it. And it is a fact that through most of these last 25 years, the Republican leadership has opposed federal aid for education, medical care for the aged, development of the Tennessee Valley, development of our natural resources. I think Mr. Nixon is an effective leader of his party. I hope he would grant me the same. The question before us is, which point of view and which party do we want to lead the United States?
Mr. Nixon, would you like to comment on that statement?
I have no comment.
The next question, Mr. Novins.
Mr. Vice President, your campaign stresses the value of your 8-year experience, and the question arises as to whether that experience was as an observer or as a participant or as an initiator of policy making. Would you tell us, please, specifically what major proposals you have made in the last 8 years that have been adopted by the administration?
It would be rather difficult to cover them in 2.5 minutes. I would suggest that these proposals could be mentioned. First, after each of my foreign trips, I have made recommendations that have been adopted. For example, after my first trip abroad, I strongly recommended that we increase our exchange programs, particularly as they related to exchange of persons, of leaders in the labor field and in the information field. After my trip to South America, I made recommendations that a separate inter-American lending agency be set up, which the South American nations would like much better than to participate in the lending agencies which treated all the countries of the world the same. I have made other recommendations after each of the other trips. For example, after my trip abroad to Hungary, I made some recommendations with regard to the Hungarian refugee situation, which were adopted not only by the President, but some of them were
That's what I was wondering, too. His chin looks wet.
enacted into law by the Congress. Within the administration, as a chairman of the President's Committee on Price Stability and Economic Growth, I have had the opportunity to make recommendations which have been adopted within the administration and which I think have been reasonably effective. I know Senator Kennedy suggested in a speech at Cleveland yesterday that that committee had not been particularly effective. I would only suggest that while we do not take the credit for it, I would not presume to, that since that committee has been formed, the price line has been held very well within the United States.
Well, I would say in the latter that and that's what I found somewhat unsatisfactory about the figures, Mr. Nixon, that you used in your previous speech. When you talked about the Truman administration, Mr. Truman came to office in 1944 and at the end of the war, and difficulties that were facing the United States during that period of transition, 1946, when price controls were lifted. So it's rather difficult to use an overall figure of taking those 7.5 years and comparing them to the last 8 years. I'd prefer to take the overall percentage record of the last 20 years of the Democrats and the 8 years of the Republicans to show an overall period of growth. In regard to price stability, I'm not aware that that committee did produce recommendations that ever were certainly before the Congress from the point of view of legislation in regard to controlling prices. In regard to the exchange of students, of labor unions, I am chairman of the subcommittee on Africa, and I think that one of the most unfortunate phases of our policy towards that country was the very minute number of exchanges that we had. I think it's true of Latin America also. We did come forward with a program of students for the Congo of over 300, which was more than the federal government had for all of Africa the previous year. So that I don't think that we have moved, at least in those two areas, with sufficient vigor.
The next question to Senator Kennedy from Mr. Warren.
Senator Kennedy, during your brief speech a few minutes ago, you mentioned farm surpluses.
Well, this is it.
I'd like to ask this. It's a fact, I think, the presidential candidates traditionally make promises to farmers. Lots of people, I think, don't understand why the government pays farmers for not producing certain crops, or paying farmers if they overproduce, for that matter.
This is the one I wanted to get to right here. So what's the timestamp in this video right now? I don't know what the timestamp is, but if you're hearing me right now, this is where they're going to talk about the farm, and then they talk about a recession. They pay people to not farm their lands, and they were talking about it back then. So this is really interesting. It really is. You should look at it.
Let me ask, sir, why can't the farmer operate like the businessman who operates a factory? If an auto company overproduces a certain model car, Uncle Sam doesn't step in and buy up the surplus. Why this constant courting of the farmer?
Well, because I think that if the federal government moved out of the program and withdrew its supports, then I think you would have complete economic chaos. The farmer plants in the spring and harvests in the fall. There are hundreds of thousands of them. They're not able to control their market very well. They bring their crops in or their livestock in, many of them about the same time. They have only a few purchasers that buy their milk or their hogs, few large companies in many cases, and therefore the farmer is not in a position to bargain very effectively in the marketplace. I think the experience of the 20s has shown what a free market could do to agriculture. And if the agricultural economy collapses, then the economy of the rest of the United States sooner or later will collapse. The farmers are the #1 market for the automobile industry of the United States. The automobile industry is the #1 market for steel. So if the farmer's economy continues to decline as sharply as it has in recent years, then I think you would have a recession in the rest of the country. So I think the case for the government intervention is a good one. Secondly, my objection to present farm policy is that there are no effective controls to bring supply and demand into better balance. The dropping of the support price in order to limit production has not worked. And we now have the highest surpluses, $9 billion worth. We've had a higher tax load from the Treasury for the farmer in the last few years with the lowest farm income in many years. I think that this farm policy has failed. And my judgment, the only policy that will work will be for effective supply and demand to be in balance. And that can only be done through governmental action. I therefore suggest that in those basic commodities which are supported, that the federal government, after endorsement by the farmers in that commodity, attempt to bring supply and demand into balance. Attempt effective production controls so that we won't have that 5 or 6% surplus which breaks the price 15 or 20%. I think Mr. Benson's program has failed. And I must say, after reading the Vice President's speech before the farmers as he read mine, I don't believe that it's very much different from Mr. Benson. I don't think it provides effective governmental controls. I think the support prices are tied to the average market price of the last 3 years, which was Mr. Benson's theory. I therefore do not believe that this is a sharp enough breach with the past to give us any hope of success for the future.
Mr. Nixon, comment?
I, of course, disagree with Senator Kennedy insofar as his suggestion as to what should be done on the farm program. He has made the suggestion that what we need is to move in the direction of more government controls, a suggestion that would also mean raising prices that the consumers pay for products and imposing upon the farmers controls on acreage even far more than they have today. I think this is the wrong direction. I don't think this has worked in the past. I do not think it will work in the future. The program that I have advocated is one which departs from the present program that we have in this respect. It recognizes that the government has a responsibility to get the farmer out of the trouble he presently is in because the government got him into it. And that's the fundamental reason why we can't let the farmer go by himself at the present time. The farmer produced these surpluses because the government asked him to through legislation during the war. Now that we have these surpluses, it's our responsibility to indemnify the farmer during that period that we get rid of the surpluses. Until we get the surpluses off the farmer's back, however, we should have a program, such as I announced, which will see that farm income holds up. But I would propose holding that income up, not through a type of program that Senator Kennedy has suggested that would raise prices, but one that would indemnify the farmer, pay the farmer in kind from the products which are in surplus.
The next question to
That's it, you all. You can find that on the Kennedy. You can see up there at the top, the TNC 172 Kennedy-Nixon first presidential debate, 1960. You can see it right there. And I think that's probably enough that we need to hear. So the government, one wants more government intervention and controls, and he wants to help them out. They pay the farmers to plant the crops. They pay the farmers to get rid of it, to destroy the crops, and then they pay the farmers to not plant the crops. So they pay the farmers, but what do they do with the crops? It's been going on since then. And then he says you don't need more government in the farmer's business, more or less. He said until we get rid of the farmer. He goes, oh, I mean the crops. I don't know what's went on, but this was 1960. Why were you given a video like this, Gina? You don't like politics? No, I do not like politics. I do not. I have no idea. I don't. I looking through videos. I looked at Putin. I looked at Trump. I looked at somebody else, and it just kept popping videos up. I looked at the UN, and then they popped up, this debate. So that's how I ended on it. Did you go searching for them? Absolutely not. They weren't even in my mind at all, you all. So, yeah. Oh, Marcy, honey, you're also welcome if you're just tuning in. 1960 was a leap year. One said the farm policy has failed. Some kind of farm policy failed, he said. But he said it's he wants to impose more controls on the acreage. Well, that's okay because the farmland has gotten sold off. Okay. Now we are in the year of 2023, and people are losing their farms left and right. The farmland is drying up. The farmland is getting destroyed by forces of nature. Farmland is being sold to whoever's the highest bidder. And the crops are failing, and now we're in a recession. And if something doesn't happen, we're going to end up in a depression, a greater depression than I think we've ever seen in our whole entire life. It'll make the Great Depression dwarf, is probably what's going to do. Make it dwarf. Okay, I'm on here. I've been on here 37 seconds. I'm telling you right now, I can't sit and listen to that. I mean, I probably could, but I don't want to, you all. I don't. The Netherlands, no farmers. Monique, honey, what happened to the farmers in Netherlands? The people don't got no farms. Well, he said get rid of the farmers. Did you hear him? He said until we get rid of the farmers. He said it. Let's see if we can find it. He said until we get... He must have been reading a speech. I think he was reading a speech. Let's see what he said.
Controls on acreage even far more than they have today. I think this is the wrong direction. I don't think this has worked in the past. I do not think it will work in the future. The program that I have advocated is one which departs from the present program that we have in this respect. It recognizes that the government has a responsibility to get the farmer out of the trouble he presently is in because the government got him into it.
And that's the fundamental reason why we can't let the farmer go by himself at the present time. The farmer produced these surpluses because the government asked him to through legislation during the war. Now that we have these surpluses, it's our responsibility to indemnify the farmer during that period that we get rid of the farmer, the surplus.
Did you see that? I don't even know where I messed that up, you all. I already messed it up. Gina, honey, you did mess it up. You all messed it up until we get rid of that farmer, he said. We gotta get rid of the farmer. You heard it. I've already messed the timestamp up on it. It's okay, you all. It is quite all right. You know what? You can go look at that. You can look at that debate. I'm going to put it right here, honeys. We can do it. You all can look at that. I'm going to put it right there. Put it in the live stream. You can go listen to it. But he said he's going until we get rid of the farmer. Well, I think you're doing a good job now. The year is 2023, and the farmers are going bye-bye. Yeah. Oh, my goodness gracious, you all. Yeah, this is, I had a slip of the tongue. How many farmers have lost their land? How many farmers have lost their land since 1960? Well, states that have lost the most farms in the last 100 years. Let's see it. Are they going to say the states? Oh, you all, we get to look at this. This is good. Okay, so we're gonna look at this. You all, just bear with me 1 minute. We're gonna look at this. Alaska has lost 364 farms. Arizona has lost, that's since 1920, 9,000. Wait, this is the total? The number of farms were 9,000. How am I going to read this, you all? Who's lost the most? Because I'm not seeing a legend on here. Let's see. They had 364 farms in 1920. Okay. So it's not saying who's lost it. Okay. So 2019, they had 1,050. Well, this is not telling us, you all. It's not. I'm going to go down all the way because this is not a good model that I wanted to look at. Who's lost the most farms? I don't know. 34,000 farms. There's been a lot of farms, you all. I'm not going to look at it. Gina, you don't need to. I know I don't need to. The decline of the small American family chart in one chart. There. No. No. Look at this, you all. I can't read nothing. That's okay, you all. We are in crisis. The nation has lost more than 100,000 farms between 2011 and 2018, 12,000 between 2017 and 2018. The shrinking farm numbers. Can I look into that? They started to shrink, you all. Land and farm peaked in 1950 at 1.2 billion acres. Today, land farm is at 0.95 billion acres. Most of the lost farmland was converted to suburban urban sprawl. So, yeah. 200 million acres of forest have been lost. So, that's it, y'all. That's fine. I'm done with it. I'm done with it. I'm going to go. So, yeah, they wanted to get rid of the farmers. He said, until we get rid of the farmers, we got to help them until we get rid of the farmers. So it's happening. They're getting rid of the farmers. He might be dead. Well, he probably is dead, but that's okay. I mean, it's not okay, but it's history. History, you all. I'm going to go. Thank you. How we doing down here? We're going to go, you all. We got it. If they don't comply, they will lose their money. That's true. You know what? Somehow, when I first moved here, I wanted to know who got the most governmental money from the farm, most farm money from the government for their farms. And I was shocked. It was the largest farmer around here got the most money from the government. So I thought, no wonder this person is so wealthy, and they can use their money to influence lots of areas. And I thought, it's about right. You can find out who got the most government grants and money from for their farm. You can find out there. I don't even know how I found it, but I found it. And it made sense. Everything made sense when I figured out how that happened. Yeah, you're so very welcome, you all. Yeah, they're going to lose their crops. Yeah. It hurts the small farmer. It does, and you need to get you a garden going, you all. Get a garden going if you can. If you got room. If you don't, well, do your best and get you some food storage. Yeah, that's right. I don't know. I don't know, you all. I really don't, but I know that I better hop off of here. Let's get them off here. Let's cover their face up, you all. There. You can't see them. You can't see them now. So I'm going to go, and thank you all for tuning in. I made myself black and white because I wanted to go back to the 1960s with them. Actually, I could be on that panel. How do you know, you all? You might have been, if you believe in reincarnation, you could have been somebody else in the 1960s if you weren't born at that time. You know, you could have been living in that era too. You just don't ever know, really. Think about it. You don't ever know, but there are people, when they come into this world, they have a story of who they were before they came here. They do. So it's all wild. It's like a recycling of the human. There are people who are owed so. Then why do you feel like you're owed so? Really think about it. Why do you feel like you're an owed so? There's something to it. There really is something to the owed souls. There is. So let me shrink myself back down, and I'm going to go. So, yay. With that being said, I'm glad y'all got your garden stuff going. I went and got some more okra plants. I like okra. I like to watch it grow, and we chop it up into little bitty pieces, slice it. We bake it in the oven with some salt and pepper, and it's so delicious as a snack. It really is a nice little snack. So I got some okra, and I got some more cucumbers to put in my greenhouse, because yesterday I put fencing on the inside for the cucumbers to grow up on one side, and fencing on the inside for the miniature melons to grow up on the other side. And then I put another fencing thing for some other things to grow up on the side of the shed too. So I'm going to go. Yeah, y'all got to stay busy. Plant you some onions and potatoes and stuff like that. I'm going to go. And hello, wherever you are in any part of the world. Hello. From my heart to yours, love you. Have a wonderful rest of your afternoon. I hope to see you later. Gina, honey, what are you going to share? I have no idea. I have no idea, you all. I literally just wing it. Just wherever I feel led within my spirit. I don't try to think about nothing ahead of time, because if I thought about something ahead of time and I really tried to force something, nothing's going to come. So, because if I'm led to something, whenever I'm led to something, I'm going to say it right then and there. So, yeah, I don't know what we're going to see tonight, you all. I really don't. That's all right, you all. Yes, it's so good. You fencing your melons. I hope they do good. I really do. Never let a melon vine up a fence line, but I'm going to find out. That's right. Yeah, Applebrooks, honey, I've been keeping you on here so long, Gina, honey. I've got a life outside of this YouTube. I know you do, Applebrooks, honey. We all do, so I'm going to let you go, Applebrooks, honey. If there's any other moderator, thank you also. Danny, are you on here too? I know we got some other moderator on here, but thank you also. So I'm going to go. I love it. I do love it. So, you're welcome, Susan Donahue. With that being said, hello, wherever you are in any part of the world. Hello. From my heart to yours, love you. Have a wonderful rest of your afternoon, you all. Thank you. We all got lives outside of YouTube. That's okay, you all. At least we're living our life to the fullest. We are. Love you. Thank you.